All right, that's enough. But there's more.
I love that. Good morning, everybody. Happy day after 4th of July. I love that song, The Blackstrap Molasses by Danny Kaye, right, Dr. Tom?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was so fun. That has to do with a little bit of something we're going to be talking about today. I love your introduction here. Lots of people making lots of noise this week. The whole place is on sensory overload with the 4th of July. So we're going to talk about that sensory overload that a lot of us have when it comes to either the 4th of July and or just life in general. So shall we start with a little bit of sensory overload and just kind of begin with what we do to our minds and our bodies?
Yeah, we can all just take a breath after right? That's like the bombs bursting and then all of a sudden there's clear sky in the morning. You know what I was thinking this morning, Storm, is that we talk about this so often on this call about how we've pathologized or normalized the pathology, right? And there's so much that if we could step outside what's really happening and look at what we're doing, and I'm talking about in the Western world, in the modern world, where we're overloaded. A lot of what is offensive to the healthy, right, has become the way we do things, and no longer can we feel the offense. And so a lot of what we're talking about is reigniting ourselves, revitalizing ourselves, where we actually can feel that offense. When somebody pokes you in the ribs, do you feel the poke? Right? When there's something, and the other side of the story too is when the good news comes along, can we handle it? Right? Do we have the discretion to take action and claim the next right thing, whatever that is? Sometimes it's the next right thing in stepping away from a pain or a pathology or a detriment. Sometimes it's actually stepping towards something, and a lot of times with our chronically inflamed state. And again, the body always doing the right thing in a chronic inflammation, saying, no, can't handle it right now. Inflaming the tissue, right? Stopping the process of the normal turnover of the body in the flow, in the normal body in the flow that's healthy, handles the inflammations. We talked a lot about constructive inflammation, and the body saying, okay, here's the job that needs to be done. A constructive inflammation is received by a healthy body in a context of sufficiency, saying, okay, I got this handled. Let's put the resources there.
I love it when you say too that a family that eats together thrives together. Why do these hypersensitivity syndromes run in families? And those hypersensitivity syndromes that we were talking about that we wanted to address today are such as anxiety, Asperger Syndrome, ASD, or ADHD. And they're overwhelming stimuluses that you were just talking about. But if our families eat together, we thrive together. Can you touch on that?
Could we touch on it? Holy moly. Well,
we grab onto it.
Right. We become what we eat. And if we're eating, one of the things that I love about the whole idea behind aloe itself, the desiccation of the aloe plant and the way Aloe Corp has actually gone about the science of delivering this leaf, right? Takes the whole leaf. We've talked a lot about the dehydration technology, all the enormous reservoir of minerals, 200 active ingredients in that leaf. That's a family of nutrients, right? Soil brings the leaf brings the food. So family that eats together, you take a couple of plants from the soil, those are healthy plants. They're eating together from a nice reservoir of nutrients. And similarly, it's fun in modern science to point to genetic predispositions to things. And in reality, it's got very little to do. Most of our DNA is the same. We got 25 people on the call. Almost all of our DNA is similar. There are some identifications, right? And if you go commit a crime and leave yours there, they'll find you. right? There's ways to make it. Ginger, damn. Oh yeah, they're watching. But the the key element there is most of our DNA is most of the DNA in our body is not human, and most of the DNA in our body has to do with what we've exposed ourselves to. So what foods have you put in the body? What drinks have you put in the body? What air have you breathed, right? And what creatures have been around? Animals, other family members. And again, it's got nothing to do with the DNA that identifies that species. It's not the species specific. It's not the Homo sapien DNA that we're talking about. It's not the DNA on the chromosomes. It's the DNA in the bacteria that end up populating every tissue that we have and directing that inflammatory response, that constructive inflammation that says, hey, we got the resources. You have enough bugs in your body that are handling a lot of the stuff that we talked about with salt management and total body mineral delivery and those kinds of things. If you got the same salts and the same minerals and the same bugs to handle it, because the bacteria need to activate all those things, then you've got a similar capacity. So it's not surprising. My capacity, if I eat in the same kitchen as my mama, and my mama's got problems, I'm likely to have those problems, and they might be overwhelmed. It might be emotional overwhelm. We can talk about where the emotional overwhelm came from in the first place. There's nothing wrong with her at the core, right? There's nothing wrong with the DNA at the core. The reflection of the emotion is actually a reflection of the bacteria and the physiologic state. So it's not a surprise that we end up having the same, call it crisis management techniques, or the same, chronic pain. We've got these low capacities for handling pain, low capacities for dysfunction and discomfort, and it's not an accident. I think that we're the leading nation here in when we talk about pain management and chronic pain and addiction issues. We're leading the world in those issues because we have so compromised our ability to handle things.
Dr. Tom, when you say we're in the same kitchen as our mama, or, it can be, I know what you're saying. So all of us on this call today, we're hyper aware of better health. We're aware of putting better things into our body. We have been introduced to Univera, and we love their products and the science behind them and what they've done for our bodies. So on the note that you say, if we're in the same kitchen with our mom, with our dad, with our grandma, whatever, how do we, talk about making that change? We can't just change somebody, but we can be a better influence to them. I was in the kitchen with my daughter and her boyfriend last night. We're putting together a dinner, and I want to do this quinoa salad, and they want to do this steak, and he wants to put butter on the steak, and we're talking about butter and how much it is actually better for you than you really thought. So my daughter is getting some things that she hears from me. I'm getting some things that I hear from her and that she's learning. And so, as you say, a family that eats together thrives together. We're giving each other. Zach had never had quinoa salad. And so he goes, oh, that's not too bad. What is that? It's not too bad. He liked it. He dished up a little bit more. So I guess that's kind of what you were kind of leaning towards, is making better, being supportive to those family members that are anxious, that do have depression. We get to help in a positive way rather than in a negative way or pushy way. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's and it's interesting how it's people sometimes hear us talk and they think there's no possible way I can do that, right? When you think about waving, when you look at a healthy person, realistically, 90% of America looks at a healthy person and says, there's no way I can be like that, right? That's way too many changes. So we're talking about stepwise shift, and does can the body handle a tiny little? Almost everybody can handle some tiny little awakening, right? We talked about taste bud turnover and that kind of thing, and it's a little tiny taste bud, and whatever you can do to wake up somebody and say, here's what Mother Nature actually tastes like. Here's what it actually is. And one of the brilliance of Extra, by the way, since you were pointing to Extra, I was talking to somebody about the black pepper extract, which is one of what we call a minor component of the product. but in creating cellular availability, think of every one of our 100 trillion cells as being equally resistant, right? So we've stopped all of the normal receptive capacities, and that's, I'm being hyperbolic there, of course. We haven't, we're still here, right? So points to the enormous capacity that we have, I think, to stay present. But that black pepper, for example, turns on some of those voltage-dependent channels we're talking about. Turns on some of the cell's ability to say, oh, that's what it is. That's what's called a constructive inflammation. And there's an enzyme interaction there as well. Thousands of things like that, right? That kind of just tweak the cell and say, this is not everything you need by any chance, by any stretch. But here's a little poke in the ribs, and hey, there's something out here, right? Here's a fatty acid that needs to be inside. You need this. Let's activate this receptor, right? And this enzyme has done its work. And what do you know? The byproduct of the enzyme, because of the bacteria, the byproduct of the enzyme, since we're going to talk about GABA, actually activates the cell itself. So it comes with the food, and it comes in the properties of the food. And so I didn't answer the question about, I wanted to make the point that we make stepwise change. We make really small changes that for the person we got to remember are dramatic shifts, right? And those feed upon themselves. So the more you awaken, the more you awaken. Just like the more you go to sleep, the more you go to sleep, right? The body that's in pain and protecting itself, and once the body is shifted to a place where the inflammatory cascade is taking over, the first order of business is not to build. That body can't handle anything. First order of business is get to the root of the problem, identify the problem, and as we pointed to last week, the most powerful intervention is not an addition, it's a subtraction. What's going on in life that needs to stop?
Right. Okay. So, and when I'm cluing in on that downtime, the quiet time, recovery time that you talked about, how does gut health and total body salt factor in? I think now we can talk about the molasses and water mirror KM effect and your little song this morning, and then we'll go into GABA because you talked about that. But let's touch on the downtime, the importance of recovery time, and how does gut health and total body salt factor in to the downtime and recovery time?
Yeah. Well, so the body's always telling the truth. Yeah. And had a question about craving and a young child craving salt. Is it abnormal to crave salt? Yes, it's abnormal. Is there something wrong? Yes, there's something wrong. Right. That's the good news, and we have to. I think we have to be careful to not throw up a flare and say, oh, there's something wrong here. Let's turn this off. Hey, there's something wrong here. Great. We know what the problem is. We've gotten to the root of the problem. We might not know what the next steps are, but we've got the problem identified. So, 3-year-old who's craving salt, that's pretty clear. There's a lot of places to go, of course, but the body does a great job of regulating electrolytes. And since we're talking about electricity and explosions, I was thinking of, what's the reset capacity of the body? It's enormous. Almost everything we do is an electrical communication. So just like last night, the hydraulic cannons, I don't really even know what the cannons are, but fireworks cannons, right? They can't shoot continuously forever. They've got to shoot, and then there's got to be a little, the mechanism's got to come back in place, and whatever hydraulic, the air that fills the cannon's got to go back in place, or whatever electricity, it's got to be reset. Our body's got to do the same thing. And as good as we are at what looks like regular ongoing, there are microscopic wait times. There are microscopic stop points. And especially in electricity, in electrical communication, that depolarization. So let's talk about a cell that's, sodium, potassium, for example, intracellular. Inside the cell is a lot of potassium. And when something activates, one of those voltage channels activates, the potassium's out fast. That's the cell, what's called depolarizing, right? It's doing its thing, creating its off, and it's sent its rocket into the air, right? and it needs some downtime. And those are activated recovery channels as well. We don't need to go into the details of that, but it's almost all electrolyte dependent, and it's almost all total body salt dependent. And it's not, so again, back to aloe, for example, which is a great start point, and a look at a holistic organism that's got enough of all the different kinds of resources. Point to KM, same thing. I love looking at this label with people because they see all of the different bitters, all of the different extracts, right? And it would be meaningless. And I don't know the first thing about what chamomile does. I know a couple of things, but sarsaparilla, dandelion root, licorice, seneca, passion flower, all these bitters, thyme, right? It's not about pointing to a particular thing and saying, like an opiate, for example, that blocks a very specific receptor. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a tonic that was put together that's enough of that poke in the ribs to the body. And again, the metals, the electrolytes, not everything you need. Calcium, 2% of the total daily. Iron, 8%. Iodine, 10%. Potassium, 8%. But enough of the right balance, right? That the body says, oh, I know what to do with this. And again, this is not the answer, right? This is a fantastic first start for anybody. And Ginger, I would, there's nothing wrong with this for any person of any age. So this is a great start. And that craving points to dehydration for one. And dehydration, as we've said so many times, isn't total body water, it's total body minerals, salts. So that which is dissolved in the water, because the body will always keep the volume right. The concentration right. The volume itself might change, right? And then all of a sudden you've got problems because the what's called antidiuretic hormone kicks in, and the hypothalamus takes full care of the body and the vascular tree. When that tree has shrunk, the body says, hey, hold on to water. Tells the kidney, right? Tells the pituitary to tell the kidney with what's called antidiuretic hormone to stop pumping out, stop dropping water, hold on to the water. And then you're in a vicious cycle because you're holding on to water by mechanism of holding on to salt. But the problem was high salt in the first place. But it's all a total body. So that's an example of how the body can get lost when it's only looking at one component, right? But it's the ocean, just like the rocket's red glare, the sky is alive, right? It's beautiful when there's a bunch of different kinds of fireworks up there. The body's alive when there are a bunch of different electrolytes, and then it can do all of its magic.
Very good. Okay, so now let's touch on what is GABA, because we keep saying we're going to talk about what is GABA. What is GABA? And which brain is it acting upon, and why might it be the ultimate peacemaker? I like that, so I'm interested. What is GABA?
Yeah. Well, GABA is one of the inhibitory transmitters in the body. In fact, it's the main inhibitory transmitter in the brain. And it also is a modulating effect, and much the way we talk about having a reservoir of an ocean of electrolytes that balance out and can restabilize the cell very quickly. GABA also fits in many different systems. In fact, since we're talking about antidiuretic hormone, GABA is a great, I won't go there. So gamma aminobutyric acid, and we have a product called anti-stress, which has GABA in it. There was controversy when people first started putting GABA in natural products 20 plus years ago, or maybe longer. There was a controversy of what does it get across the blood-brain barrier, and in the world of impacting the brain and neurological health, that's often been the case. Does it cross the blood-brain barrier? Can you put it in the mouth, right? And how does it get from the gut into the tissues, into the serum, across the blood-brain barrier, which is like going through customs, right? Because the central nervous system has its own set of rules. And what's really great now is we know enough about gut health, and we know enough about where GABA is actually produced. Most of it's produced in the GI tract, that we don't need to cross the blood-brain barrier anymore. What we need to do is we need to get to the gut and impact the gut. And similarly, is the gut ready to handle GABA, right? So anti-stress, for example, is not a first line. It's for somebody who is looking for stress relief. It's probably, for somebody who's highly compromised, it's not a first line answer, right? This is the first line answer. For somebody who's highly compromised, this is the way to go. And once you got a week or two of this on board and you've got the body back in shape and you've got enough volume where GABA makes a difference, then then it's valuable. But so yeah, so anti-stress is GABA. It's ashwagandha. Ashwagandha used to be an extra, and a lot of people missed it when it was gone. And ashwagandha, a fantastic stabilizing herb. And
I never used it. Used to make it.
yeah. So you want me to talk about that a little bit, or?
I think I want to go to just a couple of things that we kind of touched on last week that we didn't. Fascia, the rehydration of the tissue. Did we finish that last week, or was that a question I wrote down on my notes? Come back to it, but I'm not remembering if we actually fascia, the rehydration of tissue. Since we're talking about hydration, maybe you want to touch on that just for a second. And platelet activation.
Yeah, great. Okay. So in platelet, since we talked about platelet activation, just like any cell type, there's an on and an off, right? Just like a neuron is on and off, and there's a wait point in between. And platelets, if they're going to do their clotting work, they're either they're activated or they're not. And a lot of that activation happens, as we've said, with voltage channels and with electrolytes. So again, this salt bath, this ocean of stuff that we're supposed to be, if it's not sufficient, a lot of that stuff's not going to happen. So, and that's a good start point to talk about so fascia. And for those of you who haven't heard the word fascia, F-A-S-C-I-A, fascia is part of the layers of connective tissue that surround the muscle. There's investing tissues all through all of our organs. And much the way we're talking about hydrating. So if you were to rehydrate a lot of the dehydrated aloe, right, you get a happy, healthy aloe. That everybody knows how nice and flexible an aloe leaf is, right? That's what our tissues are supposed to be. When they're dehydrated, when our tissues are dehydrated, squash, right? They get hard, much the way we're talking about cholesterol. When there's not fatty acid turnover in each cell, you've got cells that go from happy, mobile, flexible cells to, this is what the cell type looks like. Not going to work, not going to do anything. I don't have the resources to do it. Same thing with fascia. And so, in an athlete, for example, when you're going to work in the muscle quite a bit, and a lot of those electrolytes are gone, right? So your muscle needs calcium, that fiber needs calcium and magnesium and all the different electrolytes. And a lot of times, stretching a muscle will stop the cramp, right? The muscle's doing the right thing because all of a sudden it's gone from this nice, flexible, layered fluid to it doesn't have enough, right? It's used up all its electrolytes. The body doesn't, and it's got some inflammation there, so the body doesn't have the capacity to invest it with new flow yet. But what do you know? Stretching that muscle mechanically, right? I reach out and I stretch my arm. Mechanically stretching that muscle gives those layers enough of a little space that all of a sudden new fluid gets in there, new vascular tissue's getting in there, right? And in a body that's healthy, there might even be a little bit of microscopic damage, which, as we've pointed to, in the world of constructive inflammation is a very good thing. That constructive damage is the alarm signal to the body that says we need some help here.
Right. Okay. So now I'm going to jump down to, let's see, opportunists. How do they compromise us? Question about mycoplasma infections. ...
Oh, hold on a second, Storm.
Okay.
I totally forgot to talk about so since we played the song, maybe we should play the song. Maybe we should just play the song.
Play the song. Do you have the song again really quick?
We should probably have the song on soundtrack, just low in the background.
I don't need vitamins or pills at all. I even mix it with a hat of call. I mean, pass that and the winner bread. Make sure this one.
everything. We
My
turn
life
right.
would jump me and I'd walk the floor. I never got to sleep till after 4. But since I'm eating right, I feel okay. I'm sleeping every night, half the day. From eating
All right.
That
So-
is so good. That
That's
is
great.
so good.
I love that. So let me just talk about molasses, since I'm a big fan. We mentioned it 2 weeks ago, and
Please do, yes.
I wanted to say, so much the way we're talking about the dehydration of the aloe leaf, and how being able to deliver in high density and small volume a very nice product, right? We can deliver a whole food product with an aloe leaf, the way we've handled that. And so molasses is the same. So the first boiling of the molasses is what's called light molasses. And then when you buy dark molasses, that's what's called a second boiling, right? There's a thicker and a darker syrup. And what happens in the boiling is most of the sucrose, most of the glucose fructose. So sucrose is table sugar, right? That's glucose and fructose put together. That all boils off. That all, and then all of a sudden you've got blackstrap molasses, which is a third boiling. And that's the thick, very dark and bitter. It's the most concentrated, and it's the most vitamin rich. And it's got a fantastic profile of minerals, much like another product that we keep showing, right? And so it's got about 15% of B6. Again, this is not 100%, right? You look at one component, and this is not an answer, right? This is just a great example of if you're going to eat something sweet, and a lot of people don't like it because it's got a bitter taste. And a lot of people don't like it because it's got a bitter taste. Good news. Oh, if you don't like it, let that be a light bulb that turns on. Wow, here's one of the most natural pieces of Mother Nature, and it doesn't resonate with your body. What's up with that? Right? And that's not to demonize anybody. It's not to say that people who have particular taste bud preferences and whatnot, we've all got our taste bud profiles. But a lot of times that can be a wake-up call, that people who don't like bitters are not well nourished, not well hydrated, right? And so it's got a very nice high density of magnesium, calcium, copper, potassium, selenium, which is a fantastic antioxidant. We're talking about selenium in the world of ongoing detox, right? All those switches that have to be on and off, on and off, on and off, and especially in oncogenesis and tumor detection. You mentioned platelets, so a lot in the clotting cascade, a lot in the immune system, right? There's always an on and an off, and an activated B cell, activated macrophage, activated. What we're talking about here across the board really is activated cells, and how quickly can the cells that you've used that are off, and hopefully you got a lot of them, right? As we're navigating life, we're going to use up our stuff. How quickly can you come back to center? And that's when we talk about homeostatic mechanisms. It's and the power of constructive inflammation and being ongoingly destructive. This is a community where we're talking about regenerative nutrition, right? But we keep presencing the idea that destruction is good. Destruction is mandatory. If we're gonna maintain this nice balance of 100 trillion cells, destruction is mandatory. And so I just love the idea. It's there are so many different opportunities to talk about high quality food and what it delivers. And one of the things that popped out actually was, since we're talking about muscles and muscle turnover and the rehydration of muscles, that calcium magnesium density in the blackstrap. Like I said, if you're going to eat something sweet, that's a very, very good choice. And that same iron activated. So again, pure calcium given for a particular symptom, not going to do anything. But in the world of the whole electrolyte profile in the ocean, all of a sudden that calcium can do its work. And a lot of the barrier systems that we see, and we're so fond of talking about all the different ways that the body's recognizing the outside influences, much the way we're talking about cell-to-cell interaction. That all happens because of intact barriers. When the barriers, and you can look at somebody's skin, right, and you know that the skin is a great reflection of what's going on inside. And that's not to say look around and get judgmental. That's to say look around and, get real compassionate. Wow, that guy's really, there's somebody in trouble right there. Right. And I think we can look at that. So we can talk more about molasses anytime. You tell me, Glenn.
So we have 4 minutes left. Do we have time to talk about mycoplasma infections? And then you jump down to these protein antigens. These are the alarm systems for the body to begin creating an insensitivity and allergy. When the alarm's ringing, do something to investigate. Do we have time with 4 minutes to chat about that quick?
We have time in 4 minutes.
Yeah. So we're talking about kids, and do the kids have what it takes to handle? Most of the reason there's an attention deficit in the kids is because they don't have the neurotransmitter fingerprint in the brain to handle the challenge. Right. The body. I love pointing to the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Right. Does the body truly look around and say, nope, nothing I can do there? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. Wow, inflammation, alarm. Oh yeah, I can handle it. Let's go. Right? Cellular response. Can I handle it right now? And the wisdom to know the difference. And the wisdom to know the difference is based more and more we point to the gut as the wisdom to know the difference. And do we have the capacity to, in the moment, handle that challenge? So the immune system is similar. The immune system is ongoingly looking at new creatures. Bacteria, fungi, parasites. Mycoplasma happens to be what's called an opportunistic infection. Almost every one of us probably has a mycoplasma bacteria in us right now. And almost all of us are handling it just fine because we've got a nice profile of other healthy bacteria. What can be called healthy bacteria, right? A normal body handles that and says that guy doesn't belong here. Let's have the serenity to just elegantly let him not be here. It might be a reaction at first, and the body might, on first exposure, if you've never seen a mycoplasma, for example, a healthy body will say, that's a strange little guy, let's go. And all of a sudden you've got a memory. You've got an immune memory. So there's an immunoglobulin memory that changes quickly. It changes over time, much the way our taste buds change every 2 weeks. Our globulin profiles change, and our recognition systems change. And if you haven't seen a mycoplasma in a little while, the body's going to say, oh, we don't have to maintain that system of recognition anymore. Let's let that go. Right? We can let those particular immunoglobulins degenerate. We can let them go. So we didn't do it in 4 minutes. We didn't get close. But the whole idea is mycoplasma is an opportunistic infection where the body doesn't have the capacity. All of a sudden, here's a relatively benign creature that the body doesn't have the capacity to handle. And there's not a constructive inflammation, not a, hey, here's something to do, let's take care of it. But there's a reactive, reactive reaction that says, all systems go, this looks dangerous, this looks dangerous. And that's what kids are doing when they're exposed to a firework and they can't handle it, for example. Right? Hyperreactive because the reservoir of resources is not full.
Okay, but we can do something to change that, and we'll talk about more of that next week. This is wonderful. Another great week. It seems so strange to have the 4th of July in the middle of the week, but it's so nice to spend part of the holiday with all of you. Dr. Tom, thank you so much. I'm going to remember the serenity prayer around my healthy eating.
Nice.
Making. That's awesome. I love the serenity prayer. Oh my gosh, I love seeing you all on here. Any last minute thank yous or happy 4th of July? You guys unmute and chat a minute before we get cut off.
Thank you, Storm. Thank you, Doctor. I love this call.
Thank you, Kurt. Good to see you.
Absolutely. You too.
Thank you. This was amazing.
Convention.
Can't wait to
See you guys soon.
Everybody at convention, we get to have face-to-faces.
Face-to-faces next week.
Next week.
David and I will play that song for our dancing.
Friday is EBI next week?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Do I have something else going on at the same time, EBI?